Okay, Kip Thorne, thank you very much for being here. It's such a huge privilege for me to have you here. As somebody who's been in love with science and in particular with physics, I've been following your work for as long as I could remember, perhaps. So it's yeah, a huge privilege for me to finally be speaking with you. We like communicated a bit via emails and stuff, but it's great to finally be having this chat with you.
A pleasure to meet you and to see you.
Yeah, and where are you joining this from?
Remind me, where are you located in Ukraine?
Right now I'm in Kiev.
Kiev, okay.
Yeah. It's like relatively safe here, because
yes.
But and you're joining from your home office, I guess, yeah.
Yes. This is my home office in Pasadena, California.
Okay. And well, the first question I want to ask, is the kind of question that I'm sure you've been asked like 1,000 times, if not more. It has to do with your Nobel Prize, which, as I also heard you say that you like to say that it rather belongs to 1,000 people, not just to 3 guys, that received it. But still, like, could you please go back and describe what was the feeling like when you actually like heard the news that you're about to receive the Nobel Prize, and yeah, what was like what thoughts like you had in your mind, and
Well, it was obvious that this project would win the Nobel Prize, and when I received the telephone call, I was expecting the telephone call, because it was so obvious. But the head of the Nobel Committee that called me said, "It will not surprise you that we're giving the prize to you and Rainer Weiss and Barish." And I told him, "I'm not at all surprised, but I'm very disappointed because it should have gone to the entire team and not just to us. And you have an obligation to educate the world about that certain kinds of science can only be done by big collaborations in which crucial contributions are made by far more than 3 people." And so the conversation went on from there. But it is true that I was rather disappointed. I had hoped that by then they had figured out how to do it. And his response was, "We could do it if we made a decision to do it, despite what Alfred Nobel's will says. We could change this, but we have not made that decision yet." And I do think that they are doing a disservice to the world by highlighting just 3 people in a case like LIGO or in a case like the Higgs boson, where it really is crucial contributions from a far larger group of people.
And what I especially love is that, I've got this lovely image. I hope you'll be able to see. Yeah.
Yes.
It's one of my favorite ones actually, because it just for the listeners or people who may not have caught that, it's like it shows you looking at an image of Einstein, right? And it's amazing to me because it shows like that arc of human discovery, exploration, and about 100 years ago, like he, in 1916, I guess, in 1918, right, he wrote down those like 2 papers on the possibility of gravitational waves, but he didn't believe in the existence of them, and it took like 40 or so years for guys like you to finally have observed, seen them. So it's just yeah, for me, an amazing story. Maybe if you can add something to it. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it certainly was. That was an emotional experience to sign my name in the same book as Einstein had signed his name in a few pages later. And I think you see me there, but also my granddaughter, who is now a neutrino physicist, Larissa.
Show it also for the people. Yeah.
She's hugging me while I'm looking at Einstein in that volume. So you have, in some sense, 3 generations there.
And you know, it's also amazing to me because over the course of your career, you had like interactions with so many great minds like Feynman and you know and Hawking and I guess John Wheeler was your PhD supervisor, right? And you know like. And then you obviously went on to work on movies like Interstellar and Oppenheimer, like just to name a few. And who would you say maybe even while you were growing up, like of all these like amazing, obviously brilliant people, who would you say has had maybe the biggest impact on what you ended up doing in life? If you can pick one, I guess it's maybe difficult, but.
Well, my mother had a big impact.
Yeah.
She got me. My mother was a remarkable person. She, with each of her children, she watched to see what might interest them, and she took me to a lecture about the solar system, and I fell in love with the idea of the solar system. And she showed me how to get started doing projects of my own and reading in the library about it and so forth. And really encouraged me to get going as an independent 8-year-old researcher learning about the thing that really intrigued me. But in my professional career, there were a number of people who had a huge impact. John Wheeler, of course, was one, is my PhD mentor, from whom I learned an enormous amount about the sociology of interacting with colleagues, about the importance of giving everybody encouragement, giving everybody more credit than they even deserve, or at least as much credit as they deserve for their contributions, which I think has been crucial in building a community of researchers around myself that is collegial and enjoyable and highly productive. I learned from him a lot about physical intuition, but I learned also a huge amount about physical intuition from Yakov Borisovich Zeldovich. Zeldovich, of course, a Russian physicist who I count as one of my main mentors. Oppenheimer himself, I learned about the sociology of a research group. Oppenheimer built a research group at Caltech and Berkeley in the 1930s. This was before my time, but many of my Caltech colleagues, physicist colleagues in my early career, were at Caltech when Oppenheimer was there. And I knew personally, for example, almost all of the major scientists that appear in the Oppenheimer movie. And I knew Oppenheimer personally. And I admired his manner of interacting with students, and I basically copied it in my own career. So I had many mentors, and quite interesting, I think mentors like Zeldovich and Oppenheimer were people with whom I never really, with who were not actually direct teachers in the sense that Wheeler was, but who had this big impact.
And so, like, just a fun question came to mind. If you had to rate, for example, Cillian Murphy in the role of Oppenheimer, would you give him like 10 out of 10 or what? Yeah.
Well, I absolutely would give him 10 out of 10. He deserved the Academy Award that he won. I spent some hours with him before he filmed over Zoom, discussing with him his role as Oppenheimer and discussing Oppenheimer himself. I was the only person who was old enough that Christopher Nolan ever met who knew Oppenheimer personally. And so I was able to give them insights about Oppenheimer from firsthand interaction with him. And I think that the Oppenheimer movie is clearly Christopher Nolan's best movie, even better than Interstellar, and that it deserved all of the prizes that it won, as did Cillian Murphy.
Yeah, and for me, like my fascination with all these things, like science-wise, and in particular astronomy-wise, it all began with, I guess, Stephen Hawking, and we just reading not just his popular science books, but also like learning about his life. He was like a huge source of inspiration to like millions of people, not just to me. And do you have maybe also like a favorite story? Because I know you're close friends with him, maybe of your time spent with Hawking that you could share, or just it generally what was like the experience like being his friend.
Well, Stephen and I were very close personally. Interestingly, we never collaborated on research. We never wrote a paper together, but we were probably closer personally than he was with almost anyone else. He was the most stubborn person I ever met. He would simply not let go of something. If we were having a conversation and he was having trouble making his computer-operated system work, and so he could be down to 1 or 2 words a minute, he would plow forward and insisting on getting the whole thing out. If I tried to complete his sentence, he would basically show his displeasure because he wanted to complete his sentence in his own way, unless we were really pushed for time, in which case, if I had a taxi coming in order to go to the airport on a flight, then he would let me do it and we could move more rapidly. But he wanted to be in control of how he expressed things. And when I had a conversation with him, in fact, it was true that I often didn't know until his sentence was completed whether he was going to tell me some very deep idea or whether it was going to be a joke. And he had a great sense of humor, and he could take a sentence that looked like it was going to be a great idea and turn it suddenly at the very end into a very funny joke.
And I guess it was you yourself who said that we stand on the shoulders of like Newton's answers, and much of the future of physics is going to be like on the shoulders of the questions that Hawking gave us. And but I also want to ask since we brought up gravitational waves, what how do you view its future? Because I know there's like a whole bunch of projects having to do with maybe potentially detecting them from like the time of the Big Bang, right? This primordial like gravitational waves. Do you expect maybe that in your lifetime that we might be able to see this?
I think it's very likely. I mean, the method that is first going to see the primordial gravitational waves is through their impact on the polarization of the cosmic microwave background. And that particular approach is fairly mature, we understand what the signal ought to look like in the polarization pattern on the sky of this microwave background. But the issue is getting rid of noise, getting rid of spurious signal that is due to other things, such as scattering off of dust, scattering of the photons off dust, and that process has been underway now for I don't know how many years, 6, 8 years, and it may well succeed within the next 6 or 8 years to get a clean signal of the primordial gravitational waves that way. It's going to be several more decades before we actually see the gravitational wave background, primordial gravitational wave background, in a very different frequency band. The polarization of the CMB, that's an indirect observation of the gravitational waves, but of gravitational waves that have periods of oscillation of hundreds of millions of years. And so you see this in fixed patterns on the sky. But primordial gravitational waves with periods of seconds to minutes, we are likely to see with a follow-on mission to LISA, so a space mission, and in the middle of this century. And but I will probably not still be alive when that finally comes in. Unfortunately, I keep hoping that I can live that long, but we'll see. And the exciting thing will be we have some idea of what those signals should look like if the conventional wisdom is correct, that what you're seeing is at the very birth of the universe, the gravitational waves that were present were the absolute minimum that could possibly be there, just quantum fluctuations of the gravitational field demanded by the laws of quantum mechanics. And these got amplified through the early inflationary expansion of the universe, amplified to become strong enough to be seen. And if that is the case, then you should have a particular spectrum of the gravitational waves and particular correlations present in the spectra. And but I would not be surprised if those primordial gravitational waves that you see in the polarization patterns in the microwave background, they're different from that because because the birth of the universe was more interesting than just vacuum fluctuations. And so I'm looking forward to the conventional wisdom being wrong and this being a trigger for using those observations to try to simultaneously unravel details of inflation and the laws of quantum gravity that govern the birth of the universe. And so I think this could be a tremendously exciting period when we have those observations in from both gravitational wave frequency bands.
And I'm gonna bring up again this image of you looking at a photo of Einstein, and just another question came up to my mind. Einstein famously didn't believe in a whole bunch of things that came out of his own theory. In some sense, you can say that his equations were much smarter than Einstein himself was, because we're still learning something new and perhaps surprising that he might never have conceived of, in his lifetime. And just if you had the chance maybe to sit down and talk to him today, maybe is there like something that if you would like to hear like his take on, regarding like the kinds of questions that are like at the forefront of modern physics, like given his immense, like I think you will agree, like enormous physical intuition, and have physics intuition, how he was like doing these thought experiments famously, and coming to this unexpected answers. Maybe like, do you think that he might be like he might reveal something like unexpected, or just yeah, what would you like to ask him, maybe like more generally about the universe?
Yeah, I think Einstein, we don't give him credit for being as smart as he actually was. Well, first of all, it's often said that he didn't believe in gravitational waves. He had moments when he questioned it, but those were brief moments. And otherwise, I think he did believe in them. But the thing that I find most interesting is his work on an attitude toward quantum theory and quantum correlations. And his work in the mid-1930s, in which the conventional way of describing it is that he just didn't understand and believe in quantum mechanics. That's not true at all. He wanted to understand much more deeply what was going on in quantum mechanics. And he proposed thought experiments that revealed the concepts of quantum correlations that could exist across great reaches of space. Things could remain correlated, and the ideas that he was struggling with in that period really are the foundations for modern quantum computing, quantum cryptography, quantum precision measurement. He was asking the questions about how individual quantum systems behave and how they become correlated with each other, and how what those correlations mean. Questions that others were not ready to ask, and questions that only became respectable and became foundations for modern quantum information theory in the modern era. And I mean, I just find it incredible how deep thinking he was in that direction.
Okay,
and so what would I ask him about? I would like him to see what has happened in quantum information theory and get his take on it, his views on it, now that we know ever so much more, building on the ideas that he was struggling with in the mid-1930s.
And as I know from history, like one of his papers dealt directly with what we would now call quantum entanglement, right? So it's like,
Yes.
It's not like, he just wanted to abandon it. Like, it's like you said, he just wanted to understand it at a deeper level. But I want to go back for a bit to Oppenheimer, like this, especially the movie, like, what is that process even like, when you're working with someone like Cillian Murphy, when you're like, how did he end up like being such an amazing version of Oppenheimer in the movie? Like, how do you like, even teach him, how to be Oppenheimer? Like, you yourself having known the guy for, for years.
Yeah.
What that's even like,
Well, I think both his portrayal of Oppenheimer, but also the entire movie, was very, very heavily influenced by the book by Kai Bird and I've forgotten the American Prometheus. which was the most deeply researched history of science book that a modern science book that I am aware of. And so I think both Christopher Nolan and Cillian Murphy really relied very heavily on that. And in my knowledge of Oppenheimer, and both knowing him personally, but also talking with many colleagues who were of mine who were colleagues of his, and interacted extensively with him, that the remarkable accuracy of this film and of Cillian Murphy's portrayal really is due largely to that book.
And I would like for you to maybe tell us a little bit about that perhaps most recent project of yours when you collaborated with an artist on a book, right? That came out not too long ago. It's amazing to me because you did all that hardcore like physics, science, like research in general relativity and so on. But I guess as you've gotten older, perhaps you decided to maybe embrace this other areas of human intellectual activity, maybe, and just that kind of combination of art and like fiction. Just not that many great scientists, in particular like Nobel laureates that I know of, go on to do like stuff like this.
Well, I was a conventional physicist and professor for about 50 years. And I made a decision as I was nearing the end of those 50 years that for my next 50 years, I wanted to do things that were different, that were fun, that I would enjoy, and that might also inspire people. And I chose that much of this would involve the interface between science and the arts. After all, I had trained many generations of physicists who could take over and could do the things that I was doing, for example, on gravitational waves, and probably do them better. They were younger and really brilliant, and I did a good job of training them. And so I decided I would sit back and watch what they do with gravitational waves. But for myself, I wanted to do this, move in this other direction. And so that's where I picked up then on the idea of collaborating with people in the arts. And so my collaboration with Christopher Nolan on Interstellar, and then helping him a little bit with Oppenheimer and with Tenet. But I met Leah Halloran, a superb painter whose father is a physicist. And so she speaks to a surprisingly great degree. She speaks the language that I speak. I met her at a party, and we hit it off, and she took me to her studio, and I was really impressed by her paintings, and so we developed this collaboration in which you can read in the preface to our book details of how it came about, but I think let me just summarize by saying that we came to realize together that tightly integrated paintings and verse could convey the basic concepts of difficult science, in this case, the warp side of our universe, objects and phenomena made from warp space-time, quite differently than we normally do by prose and illustrations of the prose. In this case, the paintings and the and the verse were developed together. We were iterating back and forth, both the painting and the verse between us, to bring them together into a form that we could, we hope, we think, convey the ethos, convey a real sense, an emotional sense, as well as a physical sense, as well as a physical intuition about black holes and wormholes and the birth of the universe. And so it was a fun collaboration that led to this book, and it's a collaboration that's continuing. But it was an experiment, and I think a somewhat successful experiment, not maybe as fully successful as I would like, but maybe we can improve it further, but surprisingly successful.
No, I'm sure like you still got like at least 100 years to go, so you've got. But I want to also to ask. I would assume like I obviously don't know for sure, but I would assume that you're not a believer, right? Would you just describe yourself as an atheist, right?
Yeah, well,
yeah. Because like this question, like when you mentioned briefly, the birth of the universe, and oftentimes like discovering gravitational waves, like from the Big Bang, and like oftentimes that's like that's where religious folks come in, like when we speak of the origins of like everything. But I'm too, I'm not a believer, but the question that I like sometimes have for scientists like yourself is don't you ever have that sense, for example, when you go out at night and it happens to be like a clear night sky, and like you see maybe even thousands of stars up there, like that there is like so much more to this world, this universe, that maybe you have like a reductionist worldview perspective that it's like physics all the way down, and ultimately like everything like explainable in terms of like physics. Or do you ever have the sense that maybe like there is so much more to it than we can even like imagine, and maybe what we're doing like is revealing some truth, but like the ultimate truth may be forever beyond us.
So let me describe my atheism in the following way, that I gradually, as a teenager, I gradually came to believe, to see that science could give me answers that were testable, verifiable, and could make rapid progress in both understanding the universe and in underpinning technology that can make the world a better place for all humans. And religion didn't have, in my experience, didn't have that capability. And so I simply lost interest in religion. That doesn't mean that I'm convinced there is no God. It means is that if there is a God, that the question of whether there's a God or not, I haven't seen that to be a very useful question, because I can make such rapid progress in understanding the universe in a verifiable way, and in making great new technologies that can make the world better. Much greater progress through science. So religion just becomes more or less irrelevant to me. And I realize it's not irrelevant to lots of other people, and that's fine. And I'm not going to argue. I don't feel any need to argue with them over whether or not there is a God. I don't militantly disbelieve in God. I just find it to be not a useful question. Which, and yes, the universe is a marvelous place. It's an amazing place.
That's what
You look at it, and I have great awe of it. but I have great awe that that the fundamental laws of physics have enabled us to understand and get deeper and deeper understanding as time goes on of great mysteries of this marvelous universe. I'm going to have to go, and if you have maybe one more question.
Well, I can't help but ask you then about as a Ukrainian, I remember you wrote to me that about your experience visiting Lviv, right? In Western Ukraine, a big city, and you said that it was a very inspirational experience. And maybe if you can, a large part of my audience is Ukrainians who understand and speak English well, and maybe if you can describe in a few words what was the experience like, or maybe what did you see, and maybe what kind of message would you have for us Ukrainians?
So I still wear around my wrist this armband that says "Unbroken," that was given to me by the mayor of Lviv. And when we were there, and I did truly have the sense that the people of Ukraine are extremely resilient, damaged, yes, but not broken. They are standing up to the Russian aggression in an amazing sort of a way. With my wife, whose profession is rehabilitation after stroke, but she's a very high-level academic in the area of rehabilitation generally. We went to the rehabilitation hospitals in Lviv and met the soldiers and militiamen and women who had been injured and in a variety of ways. And we're so impressed by them and by the quality of care that they were being given, and world-class quality of care to rehab people who have suffered in the war on the Eastern Front. It was inspiring, just tremendously inspiring. I am so ashamed of what has happened due to the Republican Party and Donald Trump with American support for Ukraine. And I do whatever I can to provide whatever moral support I can, and I hope that the Europeans can pick up and provide the material support that's really needed to pull through this. But it is among the most emotional experiences of my life, our visit to Lviv.
Oh, it was amazing when you showed me that you had this on your wrist. I just, I'll remember that, also for me, was very moving. And but do you consider yourself, an optimist in this regard? Because, it's obviously one of the largest, perhaps not one of the largest wars, since World War II. Do you think that we'll ultimately, find a way out of this, and they won't be like Russians, attacking NATO countries? Or that I don't know how you feel about it, because it's very difficult.
I'm optimistic in the long run and quite worried in the short run. I think that the vast majority of Americans and Western Europeans understand what is going on and understand the huge dangers of the Russian aggression. And we also, are told, and I presume that's reliable, that the losses that the Russians have suffered are enormous, and that they are they're not in the highly strong position that they depict themselves as in. But the problem is getting through the next year or two, and during that next year or two, building up the support from Western Europe and hopefully the U.S. if we can somehow turn the U.S. around. But I'm not fully optimistic until we get rid of Trump.
No, yeah, thank you very much. I know you have to go. I'm sure, I'm sure you know I could talk to you for hours, but
It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Yeah, I'm very flattered, that a Nobel laureate, someone who I have admired, for many years, has agreed to do this. So thank you. And okay, thank you very much, and
Thank you.
have a wonderful day. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Bye.